okay, I finished it, I exported it, I uploaded it, and then I kind of redoing the whole thing because there was something on this that I really wanted to talk about and I totally missed. So it got me a little emotional, a little fired up, so I totally glazed over it. But originally I wanted to chat about arguing with people on the internet because I did a lot of that yesterday, and it's one of the reasons I don't like holidays, because you get some downtime on holidays. Even though it was a pretty active day, it's been a really fun week. I just kind of found that like, well, everyone's kind of hanging out, doing their own little thing, and I was like, you know what'd be fun right now? Let's go read the comments, feed the trolls, and do battle. But I got sucked into that, and I do once in a while. Idle hands, as they say, do the devil's work, I guess. And but we'll get to that, I think, tomorrow. But today I wanted to revisit the topic of consequences, especially related to a specific saying and sentiment from, I guess it could be teammates or people, work proximity associates, Ron Swanson calls them. But it also just doesn't have to be work-related. This thing could fit to a lot of different types of relationships. So this was really, really simple, but it also made me think about the consequences discussion we had of like, hey, consequences are inevitable. They're not necessarily good or bad. It's just like the ripple effects that we feel from a choice or action, big or small, positive or not. And so I've heard this recently, and I've heard it in the past, and I've definitely heard it in a lot of different contexts, but this time specifically to work, and to their work. And I heard this person say, I don't need this job. But they're staying in the role, whatever that means, staying in the role. I heard the kids nowadays are, they call it silent quitting. I don't think this is that, but he said, I don't need this job. And at first I was sort of like, well, I get why you might say that. Maybe you're financially well off. Maybe you took it to help somebody else out. But even if you took it to help somebody else out, like there's something about that you need. I need this job because I want to do X, Y, and Z. I think it's a weird thing to say. And there are so many other places, you could say it. I know I've been in arguments before and I've said, I don't need this. And I think it's very close to like, I don't care. I don't need this job. So there's a couple of things about this that really bother me. One, this tells me, or at least makes me skeptical of this person's willingness to endure consequences of the job or the relationship they're engaged in. Right? Because if they say that, I don't need this thing, for me, that's like a few logical steps away from apathy. And so they're just like, I don't really trust that person is putting a lot of effort in toward the thing, especially if they don't need it. I don't trust that the person is thinking through things thoroughly. I don't think the person is conscious of how their actions significantly impact their teammates or other people they work for or projects they work on or the common goals that might be shared by others who work in that job. The other thing, as I thought about this more, it was like, what an arrogant thing to say. I don't need this. I'm just here, I'm just here because of whatever dumbass reason they come up with. You can tell this bothers me. It's why I'm re-recording it. Because the first time I recorded this, I forgot to talk about the whole arrogance piece. But needless to say, I just think it's kind of a not cool thing to say. And to me, it's important in a couple ways. One is our relationships with things like jobs, people, circumstances, goals change over time. I've worked in CrossFit, at CrossFit for over a decade. And I've had different roles there. And my relationship toward this job has changed. It's like when I started, it was this eyes glazed over zealotry, like CrossFit is the only fitness, the only fitness in the world. And if you don't do it, you're an idiot. And that has changed. I still see the great value in it. I would say my temper has softened in terms of like, I do understand that there are other things out there. And while I feel confident in applying CrossFit and teaching CrossFit to anyone, it might not be for everyone. But the other thing that changes is like, you might start off in a job or even in a sport. Like I definitely felt this way about competing, or maybe even a hobby that you have. And that just changes because priorities in your life change. Like maybe your life just gets fuller, right? So like I'm married now. We have 2 dogs. We go everywhere with the things. So it's like it's really important in our life that we do a lot of training with them. And, we're trying to better connect with family. And so that, changes things. And now there's other things up there alongside the work and the fitness passions. So the relationship certainly with it has changed. But it's like, and even though it's changed, I still wouldn't say like, I don't need this. So that was something that it just really struck me the more I thought about hearing somebody say this about their job of, well, I don't need this job. Well, it's like, why are you there? Now I can get it if you're saying it as like, hey, I don't need this in my life anymore. It doesn't line up with my goals. Well, no, because even if that's why you're saying it, and the way they said it was not in a way of like, hey, like, I want to be an astronaut, and right now I'm training to be a chef. Like I don't need the job of a chef. I need to go do training to be an astronaut. It's like, okay, well then it makes a lot of sense. Like my fear of the apathy is non-existent because it's like you're just redirecting yourself toward the goal you want. But I think there is a moment in which you could say this, like, well, I don't need this. I'm just here out of my own good graces to bless everybody with my presence. But I don't need it, right? You're just saying it because you are actually letting everyone know that you're apathetic about it. And hearing that as a teammate is a really big letdown. The other thing is like, if you find yourself saying that and you're slowly becoming less interested, more apathetic towards something, I think you kind of have it incumbent upon you to like go do better elsewhere. Don't saddle everyone with your half-assed bullshit where you're not going to contribute. You're not going to be thoughtful. You're not going to get 100% effort because you're just, sounds like, not that bought into it. I just think that is so different than saying something like, hey, this isn't my biggest priority, but this is important to me. Like those are just two, like that versus I don't need this job. I don't need this relationship. I don't need this whatever. Need this team. I don't need this consequence or hassle. Like that's where I see it leading. Like those things are so different. And again, the other thing is, aside from the arrogance is if I hear somebody say like, I don't need this team or job or whatever, or relationship, I hear a voice of somebody who is just non-interested and unwilling to accept the consequences that come with being in that employ or on that team, the consequences that would come from you making choices, good or bad, or trying to achieve a specific goal. So I think the big takeaway for this one from me, the more I thought about it is, if I find myself saying that, it's a moment to hit the pause button and think about, one, do I really mean that? If I do, why don't I need it? And what do I need to do next? What is the thing that I need and want to go do? I think that's really, really, really important because it's just a bummer if you saddle your apathy and shitty attitude on everybody else. And the second thing is, I think if you hear somebody on your team saying this, and they're saying it in a way that's like, it's not just like the nonchalant, like, I don't know, just like passive, passive griping of like, oh, I don't need this today. It's a Monday. You know what I mean? If you have somebody who's saying that seriously or in a way where they're trying to act above it all, like, oh, my skills are so great, or I could be doing whatever I want, but I'm just here and you're all so lucky that I'm here. If you have somebody saying it like that, I think it's, you don't need to engage them aggressively or violently, but I think it's valuable to have a serious conversation with them about, well, if that's really how they feel, then maybe they should think about that, how that holds everyone that they have a relationship with on that team in that job. How does that hold them back? And I would encourage you to, have that conversation. And I would like to think I'd be able to have that conversation with them in that scenario. So that was what was on my mind today. And then tomorrow we'll talk about arguing with people on the internet, which I felt like I very much needed yesterday. but don't know if it was the best use of everybody's time involved, but it happened, and we'll get there. So anyway, there we go. Be willing. If you're not willing to accept the consequences out of fear or apathy, you as an individual, then why are you doing the thing? And if you have a teammate who feels that way, I'd raise a little eyebrow to them. I don't know how much trust or faith I'd have in their ability to put out, do better, help us achieve the goal. So that was it. Appreciate y'all as always, and more tomorrow.